Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Lucas and I love to film myself building web apps with no code, especially Framer. I love Framer. I think Framer is a great tool. And basically today I want to talk a little bit about Framer components because a lot of people have asked me about Framer components. They get confused as to when to use components, when not to use components. And that's a very, I know the answer in my head, but it's kind of hard to say it in simple terms. That's why I want to do a little bit of a crash course on components and kind of show you how I create components, where I use them, when I use them, and why they're important, right? So let's get started with that. So basically the first question is, what are components, right? So in Framer, you start off with a canvas, you have the desktop view, you have the tablet view, you have the phone view, right? And then what you do is you create frames for the navbar. Let's say the navbar is about 70 pixels height. 70 pixels in height, has a, let's make, always important to make the height of the canvas fit the content, and then we want it to be a width of fill, perfect. And then we have this navbar, right? And we have, let's just duplicate this and let's create like a hero section. Let's remove the gap here to 0. And then this hero section, let's just make it for now another color and basically make it a little bit larger, right? Because there's going to be text going in here. So this text is going to be going into this hero section, like so. But before we bring in the text, let's make sure that they have a layout so they turn into stacks, right? Because before they were frames, now they're stacks. So we have the text, and now if we duplicate it, they stack next to each other, right? We want it to stack like this. So we have our hero section, and we have our navbar. In our navbar, let's just create another stack. Let's put this max width thing over here so it has a max width of, let's make this fill, and let's add a max width of about 200 or 1200 pixels, perfect. And let's bring one of these texts into our navbar, and let's actually let's create a quick navbar here. So we have the add stack. So we have stack 1 with the logo. So this is going to be the logo. And then we have stack 2, which is going to be with the button, right? All right. So lesson number 1, we have this 2 stacks. Let's keep it at a fill of fit, a width of fit, sorry, so that we can distribute it space between, and then we can add a nice little padding on the right and left of about 40 pixels. All right, now the first thing, in order to create a component, right? So in order to create a component, you can either click on the top on the parent container, parent stack that you want to create the component of, and hit this shortcut right here. So it's Option+Command+K, or you can just right click and press create component. So that's one way of doing it. And then when you name it navbar. And why am I creating a navbar component? Well, the reason why I create a navbar component is that I want to create a new page, and this page is going to be called page. And basically what I can do is that I can copy this and put this here, and every time that I make a change in this navbar, I put logo, right? I go back to the home page and it changes also in the other page, right? So the components bring consistency in your Framer project. The components, you can put multiple of them in different pages, and this, once you double click on this component and you're inside the component, you change this main component and it's there. What's also cool is that like you can create different variants. So these are the different ways, the different variants that you would choose. So for example, for the tablet, I wouldn't want the button, but for the phone, I would want the button, but I would want the stack to basically go from top to bottom, right? And I would want the height to be larger, and I would also want the not space between, but center, right? So it have like a little bit of a different distribution. So basically, this is how it would look like, right? Sorry, and you fit the content, and then boom, that's how it would look like, right? So, for example, if I were to go to this page and I haven't created these other variants, they usually create automatically. If not, if they don't do it, and God forbid, like the phone version has a desktop navbar, you can go down here and change the variants to phone, for example, right? If I were to go back to this home page and I were to double click on this, as you click on them, you can see that there's another space here on the right. That's like an empty space, and it says plus variant. And then as you click on this first one, or as you click on the second one, there's going to be a plus hover / pressed. What does that mean? If I were to click this, and if I were to click on hover, that means that if I were to hover over this desktop navbar, the color would, the fill would turn, for example, a white. Well, we'd have to remove the colors from here, but just as you see, it would turn white. So if I were to go back here, press play, hover over, it turns white, right? So that's one way of doing these different variants. So we have the additional variants. So if I were to go click here and I were to put like phone for another page, right? I can rename this variant. I put phone, but this would be for the page 2, right? So imagine I don't want a blue navbar for one page. I want like a black one, right? Or not a black one, maybe a red one. I can go back here. I can go to my second page, and I'd be like, okay, this is for this page, right? So these are the different variants. Very, very simple. Another reason why I create components is because I create buttons. So if I were to create a button, let's make this much smaller. I don't know why it's so big. If I were to create a button, right? I want to use the same button style in throughout the website, and I want to have a main button, and I want to have a secondary button and a third button, for example. So what I would do is, before I do the component, I'm just going to make the button here on the main canvas, and I would want the stack to fit the content of my button, and then let's create like a padding, and on the right and left, let's add some more styling, and then maybe we can add a type of radius, some curvature like this. So now that we have this, what we can do is we can create a component, and we can call this button, right? And under button, here we can style it, and we can style the button as we like. We can choose another font. We can choose another weight of the font, bold, and this one can be called, for example, primary button, and then we can create a hover effect for the primary button. So when you hover on this primary button, you get like a grayish color, right? So if we were to go like this, you can see how that would look like. And then you can create another one. So let's do this, and this is going to be variant 2. So actually the first one, let's make it another color. Let's make this one white, and this can be a lighter gray, maybe like this, and this one can be a white. And as you can see, as I change the styles here, and this first primary component, the styles kind of went to the other variants, right? So always when you change something here, it kind of collapses to the other variants like this, right? So it's very important to notice that. Also, if we were to create like some type of animation, let's say that we couldn't see the text, but we wanted to see it here, we can go like this. Let's just remove this for a second. If we wanted the button to be empty, but you only see the text in this on the hover effect, we can go like this, opacity 0, but then on this one, we would go opacity 100, right? And then you can just go like this and see the button like that. If you were to, if you were to delete this button, or actually, if you were to duplicate this button, delete this one here, or delete this one, but delete this one, and do the same kind of animation, it won't show because it has to be the same exact button passed on to the next component, right? So this one, for example, is going to change everything that's here. You got to make sure that it's like that for every component, right? Sometimes you're going to be making more complicated things with some types of vector animations, and that's something to keep in mind. All right, so we can make other types of variants. So this can be like a outline button, and we can make it, for example, a white with a type of border, with a border and with a black text. And for example, I were to go here, I have the button here. And what we can do is we can copy the button and we can go into other components and we can paste the button. So we can inherit components into other components. And for example, we have this black button now in the navbar, but we can change the variant to outlined and we can have that in the navbar now. Right? Let's remove this hover effect. So yeah, that's inheriting components. Now let's say we got this fine little section built and we want to create a component because we want to use it maybe in a couple other pages, right? So like we did before, you can use a shortcut like Option+Command+K and create a component. We can call this component hero. So we can click create, and obviously after making it responsive, you know, you would want to make it maybe like this and maybe center everything somehow by making the text centered, and you would want the tablet to have the fit content and maybe have some top padding, and same with the phone, so going up and down, fitting everything, fill, whoops, so we want this to be fill, and we would want this to also be fill. So after doing all of this responsiveness stuff that we do everywhere else, we have a kind of finished component, right? This is going to be our section, right? Obviously it's not so nice, but let's maybe fix it a little bit so it's nicer. Okay, now it looks good. So we got for the different sections. Now what we're going to do is we want to duplicate this. We want to put this underneath, or we want to maybe duplicate it and change the style a little bit. We can, what you would usually do when you duplicate things is you Command D, right? You copy paste. But the problem here is that it's the same component. So you're not really copy pasting, you're copy pasting the same component. It's not the proper way. The proper way is if you go to your assets and you go under, for example, your components right here, under your project, you're going to see your different components that you built. And here you can duplicate, and it's going to be automatically called component 2. So we can call this, for example, duplicate. And here you can change whatever you wanted, whether it be like maybe you wanted, I don't know, it to have a different kind of layout, right? So what we can do, you duplicate this and you're like, oh crap. And now another trick that you can do is you can go here and replace with the duplicate. So you can replace a component by just right clicking and clicking on replace with. There's another option calling replace all instances. This is when you make a new component completely new and you want to replace all of the nav bars, for example, that are in all of your pages with a specific other type of nav bar. So if I were to go like this, replace all instances with button, I have one big button on the top and it's also another page. So we don't want to do that. But yeah, this is basically a quick overview of. And something else I quickly wanted to show you is that you can create components inside of components. So if we want to create like a nice little hover effect over this image, right? If you hover your mouse over the image, the text pops up from the bottom. We can create a component from that and we can call it like hover image. And we have variant 1, which is the main. Let's just call it main. So we have everything organized and we have the hover effect. And in the main, we want to add a text. So let's just write a text. This is an example. And we can make it, for example, white. And we want to add it here. We want to add it here. We want to make it in a stack. No, let's just add it here for now, just to show you guys the example. So what we can do is if we wanted to make a cool effect, bring it from the bottom, it has to start in the bottom. That means that it has to go like this. You have to start it here on the bottom, maybe make the opacity 0. And then in this hover state, you get that text, you make the opacity back to visible, and you bring it up. You bring it up to where it's visible. And let's just increase this text a little bit so we can see it better, but this is basically it. So if we were to click in the hero section, or if we go even out to the main page, you hover over the image and you get this nice little hover effects, right? And you can not only add text, you can add other components into this component. So it's endless. This is, I believe, like a React-based logic, right? These components. But this is something great that Framer has that I love. There's different types of possibilities with components. So basically these, if we were to go to like a component library like FramePad has, which the link is in the description, it's basically like a big component library where they have a bunch of different components where you can use and copy paste to your project. But if we were to go to the FAQ section, and if we were to go to one of these drop downs, you can see that these are different components, right? Different states. And if we were to double click this, and if we were to double click this again, you can see the open state and the closed state, right? So the closed state would look like this, but then once you click on it, the arrow moves, the arrow kind of rotates, and the text comes from the bottom, right? So this is just an example of some inheritance type of component that you can build with Framer, and a tool like FramePad makes it much easier, but it's really good to know how to do it, right? So this one, for example, has a hover effect, but also has this different variant, right? So yeah. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little brief crash course on Framer components. It was nice to have you here. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment on this video. Go to my Discord channel, which is in the description below, or see my behind the scenes content where I post my struggles and my how I work every single day. So if you want to get to know me a little bit more, feel free to reach out. I'm super happy to talk to you. So again, hope this video helps you out with Framer, and yeah, have a good one.